Hey, this is your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, and I don't suck, and neither does the Piffles podcast. But anyone who plays the Riders, they suck. Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
Let's go, Rider Nation.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, here we go. Get the feeling now. Hit 'em high, hit 'em low, 'cause we're dealing now. Everybody's giving it all they got, 'cause we're ready.
William Powell said it best. Let's go, Rider Nation. I am excited for this week's show, episode 250, halfway to 500.
How do we make it this far?
How do we make it to 2, let alone 250?
The fact
Well,
we
to
got
be fair,
year
I
two,
wasn't there for episode 2, so I have no idea how the hell you guys did
That's
it.
how we got to 2.
Yeah.
Was
'Cause I
Furlan.
wasn't
It
there?
must have been Furlan.
Oh, yeah. He was carrying you with
Makes
that
sense.
cartwheel.
This is the Piffles Podcast, your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast. Thanks for joining us here, whether you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, watching on YouTube, or watching on SaskTel Max TV on demand. Thank you for joining us.
10,000 viewers.
10,000 views on SaskTel Max already. Thank you.
Why?
Thank you very much.
Why? Like, thank you, but why?
I know what it is. It's clearly the rugged good looks.
We got to thank our stylists. Like, this is where we need like the speech. I'd like to thank my stylist.
I was
soft
waiting for
filter.
I was waiting for the cricket sound to come in.
I don't have that on here yet. I don't have the ones and twos yet.
But we're super, super thrilled. Everything's going great, and we love it. So thank you, and hopefully you continue to tune in, even here in the off season where there's no news, but there's tons of news, and that's why I'm in such a good mood tonight. Give us a follow on X at Piffles Pod. You can give me a follow at RealAlexD.
You can find me at Saphamod.
And as always, I do not need nor want your pity follows at Greg on Sports.
Check us out on Facebook as well. And of course, the website, pifflespodcast.com. Piffles Podcast is brought to you by Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Okay, well, we were wondering how long it was going to take for a new head coach to be named, and it sounds like we got our answer. Let's jump to the opening kickoff. And shout out to Farhan Lalji of TSN coming in clutch. So
20 minutes.
20 minutes before we started recording, his report came out. So we were actually going to record this show on Monday this week. And we're like, well, they might announce the head coach on Tuesday because usually something happens with the Riders after the day after a show. We're like, okay, well, we'll wait. And then nothing happened on Tuesday. So we were going to record. And then I thought, and the CFL announced, okay, well, they're going to make their announcement with the city of Victoria and the BC Lions on Wednesday. Okay, well, the Riders can't announce anything on Wednesday because the CFL wants the day to be about them. Okay, cool. So they're not going to announce anything till Thursday. So we'll just record on Wednesday. So that's what we're doing Wednesday night. Just sitting down, open up the old social media, open up the laptop here. Farhan Lalji at TSN, 20 minutes before we record, coming in clutch. The Riders are about to hire Corey Mace as their new head coach. So Farhan, thank you for announcing this right before we recorded, not during the middle or after. So I think we can be pretty confident going forward that tomorrow on Thursday, the Riders will announce Corey Mace as their new head coach. He was always in my top 2. Jordan Maximic wasn't in there as well too. And then that just kind of tailored off once Buck Pierce kind of became available. Corey Mace, you guys, what's your immediate reaction now that it literally just happened about, half an hour ago?
I'm absolutely ready to run through a brick wall for this podcast. And that's just from his announcement. I can't imagine what the locker room's going to do once he gets in there. Everything you hear about the guy is he's passionate. He's a guy the players love. He's exactly the kind of coach that this team needed. We haven't had one like that in a while. Chris Jones, maybe, but I don't know about the love part. It seems like Corey Mace has that respect and love from every player he coaches. I don't think you could find somebody to say a bad word about him.
Well, you go from his coaching time to his playing days to the time he rapped with P Diddy.
Wait,
Nothing.
what?
Well, you know,
Oh,
Mace.
Mace. Okay. I actually thought that was a real thing. Wow. That this is how long the last couple days have been for me. Okay, carry on.
But no, seriously, like, yeah, every player I've talked to him, you okay? That's finally
yeah.
marinated. You're finally there.
I was just saying he probably got more money with the Riders.
Yeah.
Now he's gonna have more problems.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a bunch of those lined up. Don't worry about it. Steve, so bad. But anyway, no, like, yeah, the players I've talked to, they're not with the Riders, but they, to a man, say he is going to be a great influence on this team. He's going to be a culture guy. So I'm excited for it. Like I said, I want an offensive head coach, but if we had to go defensive, Corey Mace is the guy.
I absolutely love this hire because of his age, being really, really young still, recently played, like within the last 10 years. He played with some of the guys he coached in Toronto. Like, that's kind of funny, actually.
He played with Micah Johnson.
Yeah. And Micah Johnson's a pending free agent. So maybe there's a little extra incentive for Micah to re-sign with the Riders for 2024. But what I really loved about Corey Mace, especially seeing him over the last couple of years, was this on the sidelines, how much he got into it with the players, high-fiving, jumping around, and cheering them on. And they would go straight to him after a big play. They wouldn't go celebrate with each other. I mean, they would celebrate, but right when they're coming off the field, it's right to Coach Mace. And that really just shows how much the players love this guy. And that's the culture that we need here in Saskatchewan. We never saw that with the previous head coach. There was nothing like that. To me, this is a night and day difference than what we had over the last couple of years. And that's why I'm so excited about it. We talked about culture. Jeff Fairholm on this show talked about culture and how it needs to change, and not just like, it needs to be a drastic change. And I think that's what we're going to get. And to me, that's the best part. I haven't been this excited about the team since the end of 2019. And even then, probably when Chris Jones took over. I was excited when Chris Jones took over because I knew the losing would stop. And now I think we're going to get that way.
You know, there's one more thing that I'm really excited for that puts it kind of over the top for me. You look at some of the free agents that Toronto has on the defensive side of the ball. Winton McManus and Darius Pickett, Sean Oakman. Is it Sean Oakman? Yeah, Sean Oakman. Like, there's some quality guys there that have to have a lot of love for their defensive coordinator on the way out the door. That I wouldn't mind if they swapped that blue for a shade of green, for the right shade of green.
And I doubt he would leave Toronto, but look on the offensive side of the ball, who's a pending free agent for Toronto. That would fit a huge need for the Riders with both of their running backs pending free agent. Yeah, AJ Ouellette, if you can get into his ear, unofficially, not tampering or anything, because that never happens in the CFL.
No, a quick goodbye phone call. Here's my number.
Yeah.
If you ever need anything, like a job, perhaps.
I know a guy who would hire you.
Yeah.
Just saying. So until AJ Ouellette gets his name on ink in Toronto, I'm holding out hope that we're going to get him. And I love him. He's my favorite player in the CFL by far.
Is it because of the mullet?
That's part of it. Yes. The mullet, the wrestling career.
Yeah. I was going to say, how is he going to have his side wrestling gig? Like, don't get me wrong. I understand CWE runs a few shows around here, but
yeah, we have great indie wrestling here in Regina.
It's been a while. Ever since High Impact closed, I haven't seen a lot. So,
well, there's only one way to get back into it, and that's to bring AJ Ouellette here and have him spear guys through tables. I just think that's brilliant. So, Corey Mace, of course, Buck Pierce was the other finalist. I'm actually a little bit surprised it wasn't Buck Pierce. It sounded like it was trending in that direction. I wonder if Winnipeg's sticking with Kyle Walters as GM and keeping their guys all together, if that kind of factored into things. I don't know. We'll talk about the Bombers later, but I don't know what changed, what happened there, but either one of those two guys would have been an absolute home run hire. And we said J.O. needed to nail this hire. Absolutely needed to. And I think he hit a grand slam. And that's before they even take the field.
Like my biggest fear is they were actually going to roll out Kelly Jeffrey at some point, because that's the way the hiring went last year. It's like, we can't get anybody. We can't get anybody. And then when Milanovich got pulled out of the favorite position, he turned the job down. No one wants to hire him. Like, oh, here we go again. People are saying that he pulled out. It's like, what do you do? Like, everyone was just beating themselves up that no one wanted this head coaching job. Well, we got a great one coming in. Either way, we got a great one coming in. Even if it turns around and Farhan's wrong tomorrow and we're talking for nothing right now, Buck Pierce would still be a great head coach.
Right?
They literally could not have gone wrong with their final two choices. But I think from a locker room standpoint, Corey Mace was far and away the best choice. And to me, that signals a look from the Rider organization that they want to make that culture change. Maybe they're listening, not just to us, but to the fans, to that desire for, something more than 4 Grey Cups in 110 years. What's happened isn't working. Bring in that guy that will change things around.
Mace has 3 Grey Cups, 1 as a player, 2 as a coach. So he has 3 in his relatively short CFL career. The Riders have 4. So this guy knows how to win. He knows what it takes to win. I am curious as to what his staff is going to look like. And it's been rumored that he's going to bring his old friend from Calgary, Mark Mueller, over as offensive coordinator. It makes sense. And even though I'm not loving that necessarily, just based off of Calgary's lack of success this past year.
Sorry. Had a horse stuck in my throat.
I'm expecting some growing pains with this, because there is a risk bringing in a brand new head coach like this without any head coaching experience. But I'm okay with that if there's growth, and if it means that we're getting, a younger offensive coordinator and potential defensive coordinator, whoever that may be, going forward. I'm okay with that, because I really do think there actually will be growth this way.
And the good news is, J.O. with that 3-year extension, Mace, and if it is Mueller, whoever they bring in as a DC, if it is a younger guy with less experience, at least they can grow together. And hopefully they can make that tight-knit unit that they want. Mark losing his play calling, I know, has a bunch of people scared right now. I've seen some really how to put the other day, other intelligences comments about Mueller and his play calling and how it's a joke if Mace, because that's the reason why they shouldn't hire Mace. But everyone up until this past season thought Mark Mueller was the next offensive coordinator that was going to be shot to the moon. He's going to be fast-tracked to a head coaching position.
And that includes people in the Rider organization, because he was offered the OC job last year. Or he
turned it down.
At least he removed himself from that list. That's the best part of all this, is a year later, the guy who turns down the job now turns into or accepts the job, obviously under substantially different circumstances. 3-year head GM versus lame duck head coach GM, all of that, yes, but there's some humor in that. Although in fairness, we offered that OC job to literally everybody, so no matter who they came in with as OC, probably has the same problem.
Now, I will say about Mark Mueller, despite having the play calling taken away and the struggles that the Calgary offense had last year, I'm not going to pin that all on him, because when you look at how many drops the Calgary receivers had all year. Yes, they went through a lot of injuries, both on the O-line and in the receiving, and actually the running backs. Kadeem Carey was banged up for a lot of the year. So they actually had a lot of injuries. Not that that's an excuse, the replacements couldn't catch the ball. When that is literally your one job as a receiver is to catch the ball and you're dropping them, you can't blame the OC for that. And Jake Mayer's, everybody knows my feelings on Jake Mayer, how I think he's just trash. He's had a couple good games, but I don't think he's more than a backup in this league. You can't fault the OC for that either.
And that's where I think Calgary is the reason why Calgary took a step back. They were always the team as next man up. It didn't matter who they rolled out there. They had talent top to bottom. Their cupboard was empty this year. And not just because of injuries, the talent just wasn't there. So
they all followed Corey Mace to Toronto.
Yeah, you can't hang Mueller on that one. And even when Dickinson was making the calls, were they a little bit better? Yes, but the only reason why they made the playoffs is because Dickinson's brothers sucked as a head coach and lost 7 straight.
Yep.
I legit last night had to explain to my daughter what happened and why the Riders didn't make the playoffs. I'm like, they lost 7 in a row. Well, that's bad. Yeah, that was very bad.
Especially when you saw it coming the entire time. So the other name that was out there that we actually expected to be the head coach, Scott Milanovich.
It was confirmed by Danielle Ponicelli on this very podcast.
On this very program.
Oh, she hates me for that.
Yep. I'm sure she hates you for other reasons too, so don't feel too bad about it, Greg.
I'll ask her tomorrow night. It'll be fine.
Yeah. So Milanovich, apparently, this is being reported, wanted both Kelly Jeffrey and Jason Shivers to remain as offensive and defensive coordinators. I don't love that by any means, but okay, sure. I guess Jeremy O'Day stepped in and said, no, I'm going to have a say in this. And that say is those guys aren't coming back. This is going to be a complete change around. Scott Milanovich didn't like that and wasn't going to be a yes man, which generally speaking, I would normally side with the potential head coach here. Your GM should not be dictating to you who your coordinators are. If you're going to hand the reins over to me, it's my team. I am the coach. I'm in charge of the staff. They are my staff. I pick them. But in this case, all right, J.O., I appreciate that because we saw how bad it was with those 2 coordinators, especially at the end of last year. And I think he made the right choice by stepping in here and basically forcing out a potential candidate.
I could understand one, but not both. It's really hard to go to your fans and go, hey, here's a brand new car when all you did was take a spray paint can to a 91 Ford Tempo. And that is what he was planning on doing.
I thought you were going to do the Malibu Stacy reference there, but it's got
the hat. God, dang it. Oh, well, but I really enjoyed that car reference. But it would have been a hard sell. They're already having fans turn away, blaming Shivers, blaming Jeffrey for the play calling. Dickey's already gone, so you can't bring back his so-called number 1 and number 2 and then go, oh, everything's good. We got a new head coach. Don't worry about it. He's going to fix these 2. No, that's not the way it works. It would have been a hard sale, and I don't blame O'Day at all.
The moment Scott Milanovich came in and had those 2 names as his OC and DC, if that is in fact the case, if I'm Jeremy O'Day, I don't even negotiate. I stand up, shake his hand, and walk out the door. You cannot, when you want to preach this culture change, or when you clearly need this culture change, you need to do that top to bottom as much as you can. Bringing back the same staff and then probably the same guys underneath them doesn't really scream any kind of change. And good on Jeremy O'Day. I hope that was a very, very short interview, and he spent more time with the other 2.
I want to believe the nail in the coffin was saying that Craig Dickinson was going to be the special teams coordinator. That is what I want to believe in my heart of hearts, that Dickinson was coming back as special teams coordinator.
I mean, if I'm one of the other 8 teams, I might be interviewing Craig Dickinson for special teams coordinator.
Hell of a coach.
I'm the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I'm not.
No.
You need to just completely wipe your hands clean of that, regardless of how good of a special teams coordinator he is.
No.
You can't do that right now. But Corey Mace sounds like he is the guy. So by the time anybody listens to this, we might have the official announcement from the Riders. Corey Mace, new head coach of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I'd imagine a 3-year contract to match with Jeremy O'Day. I'm sure he'll announce his coaching staff shortly after that. They won't announce it right away. He might announce the coordinators, but that's about it. But the nice thing about this, and actually Jamie Nye of the Green Zone wrote about this, and it was his commentary, was that the timing couldn't have been better for the Riders to need this new head coach, because nobody else in the CFL needs it. Well, Ottawa needs a new head coach. Edmonton needs a new head coach, but they weren't getting rid of their old ones. The Riders were the only ones with an opening right now. So they were able to take their time, not rush on a candidate, interview everyone that they possibly could have. And I guess there was like 9 interviews. And they got their guy. So the timing.
Thank you,
worked out
coaches
great.
cap.
Yeah.
That is the only reason why Ottawa doesn't have a new head coach, is
Yeah.
because they can't afford to pay another one. Yeah, no, the nice thing, the Riders being the only one looking for a head coach this year definitely worked in their favor.
And now, once it's announced and Jeremy O'Day and Corey Mace can get to work, look at that roster top to bottom, start with the free agents. Who do we want to retain? Who are we going to throw money at with whatever money we still have? Who's going to fit into this mold of whatever this new culture of the team is going to be? Who's not going to fit in that mold? And just say, you can release them now, even though their contract's not technically up yet. Just give them a head start on free agency. Just cut them right now. That's what Chris Jones did that in 2015, at the end of 2015, when he came in here, got rid of 40 guys right off the bat. And
I'm literally surprised more teams don't do that. Just flood the market and try to get the guys hopefully you flood the market so bad that other players come available because of it. Like, why not?
Yeah. And if you can use some of your, this year's salary cap, 2023 salary cap, bonus to pay as a bonus, to extend a Sam Emilus, let's be doing that right away. So they can get to looking at these names and seeing who they like, who they don't like. And they can start forming their roster, and we should start to see a whole bunch of re-signings. We usually do before Christmas anyway. I'm sure we'll start seeing, a couple here and there, 2-3 a week up until then, and hopefully some of the bigger names, because right now, and that's where we're going to go, is some of the signings and re-signings over the last week. Not huge names by any means. Some very good names I like, but just hopefully you're going to start seeing some guys that, impact players. So the couple big ones this week, over the last week, quarterback Antonio Pipkin. I have never seen so much
Anger
over a third string quarterback, a guy who's definitely not coming in to compete for the starting job, a guy who's coming in to compete for the third string spot. I've never seen so much anger over signing. And I personally, I like the signing. You have a veteran just in case that has meaningful CFL film, but he is your short yardage guy. And for the most part, he was pretty good on short yardage last year. It was when they had Jake Dolegala do short yardage that they sucked. So I'm fine with Antonio Pipkin re-upping for another year. It's not like he's going to be an expensive guy.
The best part about this is old Herb out in Montreal saying that this move reeks of desperation.
I love Herb.
Like, dude, your team that you love just won the Grey Cup. Get off Twitter for a little while, enjoy the celebration, party it up, but maybe don't drink and tweet, because that was awful.
Like, I was trying to figure out,
quarterback is not a desperation move. He got minimum salary, maybe a little bit more.
I'm trying to figure out where Herb thinks the desperation is. Like, I was literally doing a Rubik's Cube in my brain trying to figure out where he came up with desperation, because I'm like, he knows we got Trevor Harris under contract, right? Like, I have no idea why that was a desperate move. Like it was obvious that the Patterson package wasn't working. So all hail the Pipkin package, I guess.
That's why they call him Happy Herb. For the record, I actually really love Herb Zurkowski.
I like
He's
Herb.
great.
Yeah,
Great guy. Just I
Bad
don't know
take.
what that tweet was. That was
I enjoy his writing. I hate his tweets. That's just the way it is.
Like me, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Some Canadians signed, depth guys for sure. Linebackers, Matt Dean and Nick Thomas. Draft picks from the last couple of years. Fullback Morgan Runge, again, depth player, draft pick from a couple of years ago. Offensive line, Evan Florin, draft pick from last year, went back to school. Zach Fry.
Piffles bump.
And we talked about him last week, and I'm more than happy with him being back. I have not seen a 1-year player, Canadian offensive lineman, who generally take a couple of years to develop. I have never seen a guy, at least recently, take as much flack as Zach Fry has in the last week by people saying that, well, if you can't crack the roster after all your time here, well, one, it's been 1 year because he went back to school in 2022. He was with the team in training camp, got drafted in 2022, went back to school to finish his eligibility, came back last year, made the practice roster. Yes, the O-line had problems. And yeah, I can see the point where, I mean, at the same time, you might as well have thrown him in on the offensive line. It couldn't get any worse than what it was for a little while there. But at the same time, you also had a head coach who probably wasn't going to play a young guy. He was going to try and play vets as much as possible, just to try and, win these games. They weren't rebuilding, remember, right? So you're not going to switch to the basically raw rookie.
I think the problem was you look at Logan Ferland, steps in immediately and becomes an all-star. And now people automatically assume
he's been around for a while, though. That's the thing.
But he's been an all-star through most of it. Like he jumped in real fast, or at least it sure as heck seemed to it to the fans. So they expect that from every Canadian O-lineman now. And that's beyond rare. You take it, that's the one position you don't see guys come immediately out of college and light it up. It just doesn't happen very often.
Look what happened with Ottawa this year. Dante Bull, number 1 overall draft pick. He was the consensus number 1, and from what I read, it generally wasn't close. They had him starting in the last half of the season, and he was awful. He was not ready. I'm sure he'll be a good one, but he needs time. For whatever reason, Canadian offensive linemen in this league, they just need some time. And that's fine. People saying that they were ready to give up on Zach Fry after 1 year blows my mind. How can you do that? Dan Clark was a couple of years in the making. How many offensive linemen were a couple of years? Chris Best.
How long do we slander Dan Clark?
And how great did he turn out those last few years?
Well, yeah, I want to say our criticisms help him sharpen up and get better. But yeah, like it takes some time, but it's and like I said, it surprised me he didn't crack the roster last year. But yeah, give the guy some time to get better. Yeah, Ferland stepped in really quick, but he's also a freak, so it is what it is. So I don't know, like it's.
Somebody should have been touting that guy's horn from the beginning.
I know. Like, I don't know why whoever said he was good, probably deserves a ding right about now or have a shirt or something. I don't know. But yeah, like give Fry some time. Like hope this year maybe he will crack that roster.
And that's one thing that I'll actually give credit to Craig Dickinson is maybe Zach Fry just legitimately wasn't ready. And why would you want to throw him in there if you know it's not going to end well? So that could have hurt his development if you did that. And I get it. You're only going to get it better by playing. But if you are truly not ready, then don't put them in there. So if that's what it came down to with Craig Dickinson, then I applaud Craig Dickinson not putting him in there when I know some people were calling for a brand new offensive line in the middle of the season. So I don't know. I've just never seen so much smack talk about a potential 6th O lineman before. And here we are with Zach Fry.
Like it's rare. Like Furlan was a raw rookie in 2021, played 14 games. You're not every, and that's, well, you're not going to see that. And that was all 14 games because that was the shortened season, wasn't it?
That was a short year, yeah.
So yeah, like you are not going to get that out of a lot of raw rookies. And the
But he
line
was
wasn't good
around.
that year.
But he was around with the team for a couple years prior to that.
On the practice squad,
on the
yes.
practice squad, yeah.
2019, yeah, 2019 was his first year on the practice squad. 2020, obviously, they didn't play. So, yeah, like give a guy time to develop, because not everyone's going to be Logan Furlan.
And a couple signings on Wednesday in the defensive backfield: Rodney Clemens, Mark Fields II, and Cole Coleman. Clemens and Fields II, both with the Riders last year. Fields came in October, I think. It's one of those signings that they usually don't end up playing in the last little bit of the year, and they make an impact next year. And that's exactly what happened with Roland Milligan a couple years ago. He came in at the end of the year, played like one game, and 2023 he was a stud up until he got hurt. So
yeah, he was our best defensive player until he got hurt.
Yeah. So they're cutting down a few names here off the free agent list and just building some depth. And of course, these are guys that aren't making a ton of money. So if you find somebody better, got them. Who cares? We're going to talk. We've been talking free agents. We haven't hit the defensive side of things yet for the Riders list of pending free agents. We'll get to that right now. We'll start with the D line. We'll just go with the D line because there's a decent amount of names on here. So just tell me yes or no. Would you re-sign them? Now knowing that Corey Mace is the head coach, a D lineman himself, I'm sure he's going to be very invested in some of these names coming up. So we'll just go in alphabetical order with the D line. Miles Brown.
I'd bring him back.
Bubble. I could go either way on him.
Yeah, same. If they bring him back, great. I mean, he played pretty well in the games that he played. The injuries worried me, but I think everybody on that D line was injured for a decent amount last year anyway.
On the flip side, there's a lot more important names on the D line that are coming up down this list that we need to get to before him.
Another defensive tackle, DeMarcus Christmas. I would take Christmas over Brown. If you can't get Christmas and you need to sign a guy, I would then yes, Brown. But I enjoyed everything Christmas did.
And they need to announce it on Christmas.
You know what? They have the contract done. It has to be done, right? And they're just waiting for like the 23rd or 24th to announce it.
Christmas present. Is it?
Yeah,
is
exactly.
it how it's? I already see the tweet in my brain.
Have a Merry Christmas, Rider Nation, and then there's a picture of DeMarcus with signing his contract or something like that.
If they don't do that right, they should be disappointed.
We're going to talk about marketing and branding next week about this team. That's one thing that they need to do. Market the heck out of DeMarcus Christmas in December. Get him everywhere. Canadian Charbel DeBeer.
Because of his passport, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, passport. You kind of have to. Micah Johnson.
I never thought I'd be excited about a 35-year-old defensive lineman, but he's a must sign to me. He was the key of that defensive line. And I'd love to see what he can do in a Corey Mace defense, or with Corey Mace.
And once again, and his leadership on that defensive line. You saw it in situations where he was telling guys to get their heads in the game. I'll never forget that stupid penalty that Pete Robertson took in that BC game. Micah was the first guy going, "What are you doing?"
Yep.
So yeah, you can't just replace someone like Micah Johnson on that line.
Micah's doing a lot of stuff in the community right now as a pending free agent. He's everywhere. That tells me that That's a good sign of him returning in 2024. This is going to be a young team, I think, in 2024. You need some vets. That's one I think you keep around. Plus, he was the best defensive player all season long for the Riders. So I think you have to bring him back. Now we're going to get to the two interesting names I'm really curious to hear your guys' take on. Anthony Lanier II, who was the highest paid defensive player last year in the CFL.
I like him. I like his versatility because he can play both tackle and end. But he did not play up to that contract. I would bring him back, but not at his previous number, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely going to have to be a pretty substantial haircut for me. He's got to go back to a prove it year. He has the talent, he has the skill, but last year was not his best work. So I would love to see him back, but that pay cut's going to have to be pretty decent.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. Obviously, a pay cut's in order, but I'm intrigued to see how a guy like Lanier does with a head coach who's a D lineman by trade. Because I don't think Lanier was put in the right spot last year by Jason Shivers. He was playing on the end when he should be playing defensive tackle. They had him slim down a little bit, and it just didn't fit for him. What worked in 2022, they went away from in 2023, and it hurt him. If Corey Mace wants to keep him around, I'm all for it, and I would love to see what he would do with that kind of coaching. So I would actually rather keep Anthony Lanier than Pete Robertson, who's the next name on our list. Because to me, just finding a pass rusher as good as Pete Robertson was and had some good times in 2023, the Riders have never had a problem finding D linemen to rush the passer, ever. Terrell Jariniak was a star. Fred Perry was a star. Those guys came out of nowhere. John Chick for how long? Like they find these guys left and right. So I'd honestly save some money there. I would go with a young recruit instead of Pete Robertson.
Agreed, and that's why I think Lanier is more important signing than Robertson because he is versatile. You can throw him in the middle. You can throw him on the outside. I don't think you can throw Robertson up the middle.
Nope.
If you can get a team-friendly deal, sure, but at this point, he's bubble for me.
Yeah, if you have to choose between the two, I'm with you guys. It's Lanier all the way, but I'd like to see them both back. I think they're both talented players, but I think they're going to have to cut some salary on that side of the ball and give me the choice. I'll take Lanier.
Karaoke contest, whoever does the best singing gets to come back. So we know it's Anthony Lanier.
What was that? Friends in Low Places? That was the one he was singing? Was that what it was?
It was Garth Brooks, and it's funny.
Yeah.
Every time they did that Voice of the Riders thing, I'm just screaming out, anytime Lanier's on there, take Lanier. He knows all the words to every song. And every time it was always Anthony Lanier.
And two more names, both on the practice roster. Max Parkinson, who was with the Regina Thunder, has used up his territorial exemption status. So he is free to sign anywhere. He doesn't have to revert back to the Riders if they want him back, kind of thing. Greg, you're the Thunder guy. What about Max Parkinson do you like? And
my scouting report?
Yeah, pretty much.
The dude is chiseled out of granite. Like he is.
I can relate.
Yeah, I was going to say very much an Alex body type. Very much an Alex body type. He's a freak. He is a freak of nature, a big Papa Pump, if you will. Like he is just all muscle. His football IQ is low because he didn't play football. He played rugby. He played soccer. He played 1 year, I want to say in Germany, even though he's British, of gridiron football. And then he was invited to the global combine. And that's where the Riders first saw him. That's where everyone first saw him. And he blew a bunch of records out of the water because he is a physical freak. Thunder brought him in. He's very good motor. But once again, football IQ is not there. You could see where he zigged when he should have zagged. I think the guy's got potential. as a global player, yeah, you could probably bring him on, put him back on your practice roster. He might be able to um, uh, improve on his skills, but he's not a must sign. But I think he's a guy with a bunch of potential. He is a thing of clay made out of marble that you can mold if you want to. Because, like I said, he is just chiseled, like freak of nature when it comes to the physical stuff.
I honestly had like 3 sheets of full scrap on Max Parkinson, but Greg pretty much said it all, so I won't add anything else to that.
Yeah, I didn't have 3 full sheets, but yeah. I mean, he'll classify as global status, right? So if you can bring him back and keep developing him, same thing with the, we just talked about Zach Fry. If you can develop him and you can kind of burn off a global position that you need to have on the practice roster, sure, why not?
Like, I saw him ragdoll a bunch of offensive linemen. Yes, they were CJFL linemen. I'm curious how he would do against the pros, but like I said, dude's a beast and he's got potential, but it's going to take a while to get him up to speed.
And last one, Caleb Sanders, who was on the practice roster.
Sure. I don't know.
Yep.
I haven't seen film on him.
Practice roster.
Yep. Flip a coin, whatever side that lands on. Sure. Okay. We'll look at the rest of the defense next week. Maybe the couple more names will be knocked off that list as we go on. That's the opening kickoff presented by Kathy Festian of Roy LePage Regina Realty. Let's jump to our Churchill Brewing Company odds and end zones. We're going to take a look around the CFL at some of the big headlines making news. And it was announced on Wednesday, Touchdown Pacific in Victoria, BC, and Ottawa. As I thought about it, once they kind of hinted that there was going to be an announcement, we all kind of figured out, okay, yeah, it's going to be TD Victoria, TD Pacific, whatever it's going to be branded as. I started thinking, I'm like, you know what? A good team to have there would be Ottawa, because you probably want to have a draw that's not that great at BC Place that's going to sell out Victoria just because of the novelty of the game. So I was like, Ottawa's probably that team.
Guaranteed win night.
Probably, yeah. So to me, it's interesting that it's going to be the Labor Day weekend. That's going to kick off Labor Day weekend on the Friday. I didn't think it would be that week, but that's when BC plays Ottawa at home. So I guess it makes sense in that realm. But what do you guys think of it kicking off Labor Day weekend?
I'm honestly not a fan of the game day choice. I understand it's simple with Montreal or with BC Ottawa. There's an obvious scheduling spot there, but it limits a lot of the potential travel because we saw non-teams involved in Touchdown Atlantic fans going to those games because they made it a destination game. It was an entertainment venue. This is going to be BC Ottawa and not a whole lot else because your Bombers and Rider fans aren't traveling. Stampston and Elks fans aren't traveling. Montreal fans aren't going to go across the country for
to not see their
Ottawa.
team.
Yeah, to not see their team. That's questionable week choice. And I'm not a big fan of them doing it this year when the Grey Cup is already out there. But on the flip side, if not now, when? You can have both and make it work and see if you can grow that 10th team out in Victoria, because we know the East Coast is on its last leg.
I don't hate the choice of going Labor Day weekend. I think it adds more to the experience, especially when you have the Battle of Ontario. You have the Riders and the Labor Day Classic between the Riders and the Bombers. You have the Battle of Alberta. Then there's always that fourth game that was, hey, we got the other game also happening. So at least this gives that game some juice. So maybe some extra eyeballs while everyone else gets prepared for the games that people clamor to watch because they're actual grudge matches. I really honestly think the other Labor Day game should be Montreal Ottawa, because I think that you could actually have a good geographic rivalry right there which I understand doesn't let Vancouver do anything out in BC, but I don't know. Like, it's just, I get why they're doing it that weekend, but yeah, you guys aren't wrong. It's definitely going to limit travel from other CFL fans, which, considering they can only get sounds like it's only going to be like 14,000, 15,000 for that stadium. Probably not a bad idea, because that means tickets are either going to be super expensive and super hard to get. So
It always amazes me that the league has never done never does the Montreal Ottawa rivalry for Labor Day. I'm with you on that.
100% it should
Why?
be. 100%.
It's
Give
right
BC the bye
there.
week every week, then it's fine.
Every week, so they should fold.
Well, it's every year. It's been a long week, Steve. Okay, it's been a long year, Steve.
But like, Montreal Ottawa is a clear rivalry. It's an easy one, and they
They're just
don't
across the
wanna
St.
do
Lawrence.
Just that, to me, is one example of the CFL never being able to get out of their own way. Just create that, make it start now, but now it's Ottawa, BC. Ooh.
I don't mind the matchup. It just doesn't fit with the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you're going to do that Canada Day. If you're going to have two teams that don't really have a history of anything against each other, do it that day. Or at least that weekend.
I still stand by my coast to coast. Do touchdown Atlantic, and be a game in BC, Canada Day weekend, coast to coast.
Yep, absolutely. That's how you build the league as a coast to coast league. It only makes sense, right? Now, Steve, you mentioned the Maritime expansion. Randy Ambrosi did say they're going to take one more big swing at Maritime expansion. And Ambrosi is going to update the governors next week on one investor that they've been talking extensively with. This has got to be actually like the last straw, right? Like, if it doesn't happen with this investor, you have to move on and look at Quebec City or Victoria or something else. Because if they can't do it, the dream's got to be over, right?
At this point, the Miami Manatee are more of an actual expansion franchise than the Atlantic Schooners. Like, that ship has sailed, pun intended. Like, we are done. It's not happening. Like, the CFL is the only league that announced a team twice with the same name in the same venue and never had the follow through. Like, I guess if you're going to go down the history books, that's one way to do it. But yes, the Maritimes are big into football, but I think at this point, a team in Quebec City probably has more of a draw, more of a fan base, and you could actually build something out of that. The Maritimes is just going to be too difficult to do.
Let's be honest. My grandkids are going to be talking about the incoming Atlantic Schooners at this point. It is never going away because it is a very clear and obvious market where they can grow. It's just not going to happen. It's that one. It's right there. There's so many options. You get in the whole Maritimes area to support. But until there's a stadium or a stadium plan, I don't even know why we bother talking about it, because
And
that's
no
the
investor is going to want to build that stadium with their own money. They're going to want it to be city, provincially, federally funded. And taxpayers do not want that at all. I wouldn't want that, honestly. I don't like that about Mosaic Stadium, but I mean, it's too late for that now anyway. But no investor is going to want to build their own $200 million stadium.
Especially when they get hurricanes every once in a while.
Yeah.
Like, when a nor'easter comes in, your stadium better be shipshape.
The insurance
come
that they'd have
on.
to have on that place, my goodness.
Could you imagine a November Grey Cup out on the East Coast? And how potentially terrifying that could be?
14 feet of snow. Yeah.
Like, I mean, that one better get a roof.
Right. Yeah. It's time to give up on that. So I don't know. Maybe at this time next week we'll have some sort of update on that, but I'm not getting my hopes up anymore. It's time to just cut bait and just move on.
And you mentioned all the success that Montreal or Quebec City, is an option. Look at all the success right now, or over the past 10 years, that Quebec has been having both at the college level and at the pros now. They're Grey Cup champs. Laval and the Carabins in Montreal have been going back and forth on who gets the Vanier Cup for the last 15 years. Mostly the Laval for the first 10, but like there's an obvious market there for football. And the league just doesn't seem to want to look at it. Don't know why, but
The worst part is the best possible owner for Quebec City is now the owner of the Montreal Alouettes.
Yeah, that's true. Big changes possibly coming to the Bombers. First off, obviously, we mentioned that Kyle Walters, their GM, Ted Govea, and Danny McManus on the scouting side, all signing contract extensions. Buck Pierce probably going to be their offensive coordinator again, maybe potentially head coach in the next couple of years if Mike O'Shea decides to get into the front office somehow. So that side of things are good for them. But Mike O'Shea did say at a media conference, saying a couple players told him in their exit meetings at the end of the season they were leaning towards retirement. So this is a team who's starting to get up there in football age, that have been around for a while. That's, 4 straight Grey Cups. You don't get there with young guys. You get there with guys who have been there for a while and continue to grow together. So that's obviously got to be a little bit concerning for Winnipeg going forward. We talked about the dynasty. This is another step towards it, I guess. Brady Oliveira potentially getting an NFL shot. And if they come calling, obviously you take that chance if you get it, if you're Brady Oliveira, but could be some big changes in Bomberland.
Well, I think the thing that I found most interesting was the GM, or Kyle Walter, and his assistants all signed 2-year deals to re-up. And to me, that tells me where the Mike O'Shea plan is. That they're looking 2 years down the road. Mike O'Shea is GM, Buck Pierce is head coach, whoever else rolling up through that tree. But I don't think they're going to be the team that they are now 2 years from now. We saw some of that drop off at the beginning of this season. They were the okayest of football teams for the first half of the season. And that's only going to continue to get worse unless they get younger. I don't see it happening.
But you got to look at some of the guys that are getting up there in age. You've got Big Hill at 35. You got Bryant at 37. Like, that's old for football age. Like, it's going to be interesting to see who doesn't stick around anymore. Like, some guys are up there. Some guys are looking at their future after football. Some guys are already branching out with their other careers. So it doesn't take much for a guy to decide he's not going to play football anymore. Patrick Neufeld's 34. Like, Hardrick's 33. Like, that's young still compared to me. But I can't, carrying around that much weight as an offensive lineman, your knees get shot really fast. So I can see a couple guys definitely probably thinking, yeah, I'm done. And as for Oliveira, he's probably going to get a look. It's going to depend on if he wants to be a body or if he thinks he's actually going to get a shot.
Well, and that's kind of what O'Shea said. If you can get more money and do less, why wouldn't you want to do that, right? So, but
more time to save dogs.
Yeah, do you want to play or not? Is what it comes down to. Corey Sheets has told us on this show when we had him on a couple of years ago, he regrets going to the NFL because it didn't work out. He got injured, and then that was it. You wish he would have stayed in the CFL.
But in fairness, would he have regretted it if he didn't blow his Achilles?
Yeah.
He
was a lock to make the Raiders roster. He was with the Raiders then. Yeah, he was a lock to make that roster. But you take that chance whenever you get, obviously.
100%. Take the money 100% all the
time. Taking money. The Elks could use some money. The Edmonton Elks putting together a committee to look at ownership structure. Of course, they're one of the 3 publicly owned or community-owned teams with the Riders and the Bombers. Sounds like it's probably going to be up to a private sale coming soon. Rick Lillashire said that they have money in the reserves to operate in 2024, but need new investments before the end of the season. So this is a team
That's
that had a lot of
scary.
money. This is a team that had a lot of money in the coffers. And if that's running out, like, we know things are bad there. Like, this is not good for the Elks.
Okay, let me tell you about telethons, Edmonton. This is what you need to do. Telethons, lotteries. Yeah, no, this is scary. This is legit scary for a team that was once the so-called evil empire, that was the measuring stick of this league, to go, hey, anyone can spare some change? That's a problem. That is a massive problem, and they need to get this figured out. And I really hate that his first thing is, I would build a new stadium. Where do you think that's going to come from? If you're out there saying this team is going to die in 2 years, why do you think you're going to get a new stadium?
Yeah, no one's going to invest in that right now.
So you need to kind of turn the ship around, get it going, and then ask for a new stadium, because you're not wrong. A stadium that big, it is very hard to get a good vibe, a good atmosphere, even though it is a giant stadium. But yeah, it's not made for a team like the Elks. It's made for massive events. That's the reason why Edmonton gets those World Cups. That's why. And unfortunately, it's way too big for something like the Elks.
Steve?
I don't really have much to add on this.
You don't care? Screw the Elks.
We kind of all saw it coming over the last few years with the losing streak and everything that's been going wrong. There have been people talking about the downfall of the Edmonton franchise. I don't think everybody expected it to be at this level where their future is legitimately in doubt. However, if they do move to a private sale, a huge part of me hopes that Victor Cui buys the Elks just for the chaos. And I hope right now he's sitting there writing a check going, okay, let's see how many zeros. What do we need here? How much do I have to make this happen? Because I think it would be hilarious. And I want to see him back in the CFL.
If there's anyone that could put together an ownership group, Cui's got the potential to get guys together. I find it very, very hard to believe the Edmonton board would actually take his money.
The governors wouldn't approve that. They're not big Victor Cui fans.
No. So it's just, as much as fun it would be, I guess if it's a choice of the Edmonton franchise going belly up or take this money and hold your nose, they might have to.
Yeah. It's a bad situation, especially with ultimately winning cures absolutely everything in sports. At least it should. In most markets it does. Edmonton being bad for the last 4 years, not seemingly getting better. Obviously Trey Ford gives them that excitement going forward, but you had a missed season, you had the name change that pissed off so many people. Like, it's just, everything is just coming at once to Edmonton. If they were winning and all this stuff was happening, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But the fact that they were awful for quite a few years here, it's not good. And I had an interesting conversation with a really, really diehard Rider fan that brought up the Elks, saying, and we're going to talk about this next week when we're talking about branding and marketing, because that's kind of where it spurred for me. He doesn't want the Riders to end up like the Elks. And I started thinking about him, like, you know what? We don't want it to get that bad where we're back to almost telethon and having to do things like that just to keep the team afloat, and to come out and say, yeah, we have enough money to play this year. We might not have enough money going forward to have a team later. Like, that's scary. And I don't think anybody here wants that for any team in the CFL. As much as we might dislike some teams, we don't want them to fold. That's bad for the league, and that just hurts everybody. So we're going to talk about that next week. We're going to get into that on the rider side of things, and what can the team do to steer away from that. And
Although-
I will tell you that's going to be my plea, my call out to Craig Reynolds will be next week's show.
In fairness, there would be a lot of irony if the Elks were to fold at the end of this year for a team to finally quit on Chris Jones instead of the other way around. I would find that a little bit funny. Not the team folding, but just the rest of it to go along with it.
But really, Edmonton can't fold a team. That's Ottawa's gimmick, and they're going to be very mad that someone is doing something that they're not.
Yeah. First, we take away their Rough Riders name. Next, another team takes away their folding. It's just bad for Ottawa right now. Yeah. So we'll talk about that next week. I'll tell the story about it and how it kind of got brought up and we'll talk about it. And I want to hear from other people as well too. Like so we'll bring that all up.
Hey,
one more thing
people,
actually this week.
We're your voice. If you want to talk, if you want us to talk, bring something
Yeah.
up. If you got stories about where you think this team wants to be, we're on the socials. They're on the screen. We say them every time. I say I don't want your pity follows. I don't. So don't follow me. Just at me, and I will gladly talk about it.
Or just follow them, just not out of pity. That's all.
Yeah.
Because it's a good follow.
Sure. Wink.
Yeah. Wink and nudge, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And one more thing, actually, we didn't mention, and I was going to, and Steve, you're talking about Vanier Cups with Laval and Montreal. U Sports announcing the 2025 Vanier Cup in Regina Mosaic Stadium. That'll be pretty cool. I'm already looking forward to that.
Should be a fun time. That game. This last one was a bit of a defensive battle, so to speak, but no one throws a championship football game like Regina does. Whether it be the Canadian Bowl last year, the Grey Cup last year, Regina throws a fun time for football fans.
I've never been to a Vanier Cup. It's been high up on my list of things to attend, so I'll definitely be excited to check that out. Maybe we should get Rams season tickets if we can actually talk a little bit of Rams on this show.
Probably not.
Probably not.
No.
Well, I know where my loyalties lie. There's still we have board members that are still mad about the Rams jumping to the U of R.
Your loyalties lie with the Hilltops, right?
Okay. Where's the send Steve to?
I was just gonna say.
I'm just playing the role of Jeff Fairholm today.
Yeah, that's a good way to end the show right there. Is with a little Hilltops burn. I think Greg probably wants to get rid of Steve for good right now. So I think we should probably just do that.
Yes.
So anyway, excited about the Riders right now. Corey Mace to be announced as head coach of the team. I'm looking forward to his introductory press conference. I normally don't care about these things because they're so full of cliches. I have so many questions that I'd want to hear this guy answer, and I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna reach out to the Riders, see if they'll let us talk to the head coach. So we'll see if we can make that work.
The only downside about Corey Mace being announced as the head coach, not Buck Pierce, I really wanted Craig Butler to walk Buck Pearson. I really wanted that.
Bring the contract out to him.
Yeah, and here's your helmet.
With the contract.
Yeah, here's your helmet back.
How many of the Regina media you think would have asked Buck Pierce? Oh, how about that hit you took from Craig Butler?
To be fair, he did a insurance commercial that featured that hit.
Yeah, it was awesome.
The entire joke about that commercial was him getting destroyed by Craig Butler. So you think at some point he's got a good humor about it.
CFL players in commercials, get them out there. TSN, you listening? Come on, you own the property. Just do it.
Don't you remember the Humpties commercials with Weston Dressler? Delightful.
Only the memes that came from it.
Yeah, I only remember the memes now. Yeah,
just from Fonzie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a exciting time here in Saskatchewan. New head coach, new vision of the team, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that kind of starts piecing together and fills out the 2024 roster and going into free agency. So we'll definitely be talking a lot more about that as the off season rolls along. Thanks for joining us here on the Piffles podcast. Of course, Piffles podcast brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Special thanks, of course, to Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty and Churchill Brewing Company for their support making this show possible. And again, thanks for 10,000 plus views on SaskTel Max TV on demand. Here's to 10,000 more in even shorter time. This is Ghost Behind Your Mind by Tyler Gilbert.